On July 6, 2020, the Trump administration abruptly announced its plans to halt policy suspensions protecting international students from deportation during the COVID-19 crisis. The DHS argued that foreign students didn't have a basis to remain in the United States unless they were currently enrolled in in-person classes, giving ICE the freedom to remove current students and bar prospective students from entering the country. Many argue that the plans put forward were instead intended to serve as pressure to fully reopen institutions of higher education as more and more universities announced their plans to move online for the coming school year. The loss of international students could have cost universities millions of dollars in tuition and jeopardized the ability of domestic companies to hire workers, many of whom start their careers with an American education. Each year, about 1 million international students enroll in American universities and contribute $41 billion to the economy. Forcing students to return to their home countries would in many cases separate them from families in the United States, returning them to places where they no longer have a home. In some cases, they would be living under the rule of governments that police or restrict internet access. Luckily, due in part to opposition, along with various lawsuits from universities, technology companies, and state governments, the Trump administration caved and rescinded plans to enforce this policy on July 14th. Nonetheless, there remains a lasting discomfort among international students who are now forced to question whether the current administration values their presence at American universities. In the wake of such a policy, rescinded or not, these students are faced with the harsh reality that their academic future in the United States is undeniably fragile.
So, could you say your name, pronouns, and country of origin?
My name is Alex. Pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm from Vietnam.
My name's Alif. My pronouns are he, him, and his, and my country of origin is Malaysia.
So my name is Joe Baraka, and I'm originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo. But actually, I grew up in Uganda, which is in East Africa, and DRC is more into Central Africa, more side on the west side. I go with he, his, and him.
My name is Manuel Jose, as my first name and middle name, and my last name is Vargas Alvarez. And my country of origin is Venezuela, which is north of South America.
So, how did you feel when you initially found out about the ICE law?
Man, the law was really heartbreaking because again, we're in the middle of the pandemic, and as an international student, honestly, there's so much to deal with.
When this kind of came into action, it just added more stress to it, like not only social stress and academic stress, but also you kind of felt like, at least when I came here, I thought I'm coming to a country that values people who are skillful in something. But this law just like threw a monkey wrench to that belief of mine. So it doesn't matter how good I am, all my efforts for the past 2.5 years are just going to the drain because someone just decided that.
Could you go through some of the issues you have to worry about that American students generally aren't aware of?
Oh man, I would say this one is the first one. I mean, like,
Yeah.
when such a rule is passed, an American student doesn't have to worry about deciding between do I have to go to class or going home. I would say it's straightforward. They just say, oh, I'm going in class in person. I'm going to attend in-person classes, or I will just stay at home. Whereas for me, it's more of if I go to class, I have to weigh off the trade-off. If I go to class and then contact the virus, how will I survive here? Or if I don't go to in-person classes and, for example, I go back home, how will I continue with my studies?
Just based on the economy, America's economy is pretty strong. So my family would want me to work there and like stay there just based on the economy and stuff like that. So yeah, I would just worry about getting a job within that amount of time.
Most people aren't aware of how hard it is to like get a job because the for an international student to be hired, you have to get the company to be able to sponsor you, and the process to get an H-1B, which is the documents you need to get to work here as an immigrant, is really hard. It's like a lottery ticket process, and only really big companies really go for the sponsorship because it's kind of hard.
Do you think it's still worth it to study in America versus other countries, given the current administration and immigration policies that we've had to deal with?
Not as much, in my opinion. I think I am very disillusioned with the way certain universities have behaved according to with what's happened. Like for example, I'm gonna put this. I'm very happy that universities like MIT, Harvard, like they quickly condemned and even like put a lawsuit against the Trump administration. Even if you don't do a lawsuit, that's fine. But just be sure to let us know that you're staying with us, not against us, because that kind of law just tells us that you don't want us here, and that really makes me not want to study here. It makes me want to look for other countries to go to.
I think that in terms of like academic institutions, because the United States has had such a long history of like research institutions, we still offer some of the best like classes and such. But like in terms of actually getting a job after like getting a job in that country after graduation, then I think no, it's not a really a great idea right now, especially with how badly the U.S. has been impacted by COVID, and like it's very likely that the American economy is gonna like notice the effects of that for like decades after. So I'm a comp sci major, and like even in the comp sci field, there are like hiring freezes, and I don't think that's gonna stop anytime soon. And I think that if you were gonna go study abroad, I think a different country might be a better choice.
So, how accurate do you feel American perception of international students are?
First of all, I feel like they really don't understand what it feels like to be away from home and then being in a foreign place whereby you're in the middle of a pandemic, very scared of your life, but also a person like me, like a black young man who is in a country whereby we're trying to understand the thing of racism. And again, thank God that people are really waking up and trying to fight for people of color. But again, it's a whole new sort of lifestyle that you have to deal with when you're black and again as an international student. So I feel like I wish, how can I put this? I feel like they really don't understand. For example, when I come to my room, I'm thinking about how will my semester look like in the middle of a pandemic, and then as a black young person trying to live in America. And so if they were really, I wish they were more empathetic and more understanding.
I don't know, I feel like the American perception of international students is like we're like really wealthy, I think, because I've heard a lot of some of my friends. They'll be like, oh, international students, like, oh, they're so rich and all that. I'm like, okay, no, first of all, like, not all of us. And then I think yeah, and then they're like really surprised with my English as well, because English is not my first language, but every time I like speak with them, and then they'll be like, oh, your English is very, very fluent and all that. I'm like, yeah, but did you not expect that from like me?
What could people and or organizations at UW do better to make international students feel more included?
I think something that would be helpful is maybe like a pair program. Like if you like paired up international student with like an American student, and like have them hang out and like do activities and like show them around, whatever. I think that could be really helpful.
It would be nice to have a course in which it's just, well, also Americans can join. I'm not gonna exclude it. Like, a course open to everyone, but that's mainly geared towards international students, so that they can know the resources they have on campus, so they can basically just meet other international kids. Because I don't have anything against, if you're international, your whole circle of friends are American, that's perfect. But first, it's not the same for everyone. Like I said, like in my case, I really needed people to have that kind of kinship of we're not from here. We're learning all this in one go. So that kind of struggle, I really wanted that connection. So just having a class for that, for bonding, knowing people, knowing resources, that would be really good. Maybe some programs about like eliminating stereotypes. Because I think like and maybe make it like interactive, because there's a lot of talks about, you know, eliminating stereotypes and that kind of thing, but I feel like people listen to it and then it comes out like people don't remember what happened an hour later. So making it more interactive, having a more interactive program for combating stereotypes and microaggressions will be very nice.
So before you attended UW, did you have a lot of experience with American culture, like growing up? Did you see the campus before you moved, like, here to study?
Man, that's a good question. And the answer is no. Because I actually, before I applied to UW, I had never googled the campus to see how it looked like. And I actually applied in my last 3 weeks of university. In the second, it's called regular decision. I applied 3 weeks remaining. So I didn't even have much to learn about UW. But there are very many things I feel like stood out about the institution, and I didn't have to take a year to make that decision, or even months. But yeah, I had not had much culture about the university, about the US, because again, I grew up in Uganda, and you learn things online. But I think one thing that had helped was the fact that I attended sort of an international high school, whereby they have a lot of students who have come to the US, and so I feel like I got to learn from some of the students who had already enrolled in the US universities, and that helped me so much in terms of preparing to have myself here.
Freshman year was like the first time I came to like Wisconsin and Madison. But when I was younger, I lived in California for 2 years when I was in primary school. And also, I went to an international school when I was in Vietnam. So, like, for the most part, I had already interacted with, like, a lot of people that were from different countries and stuff. And I have a lot of family who are Americans, Asian Americans. And so I think I was, like, already, like, somewhat familiar with the culture. And I think the fact that I don't have an accent really helped me. I think that people here treat people who like speak accented English differently.
Like, it's kind of sad to see that America, the most diverse place that I can think of, the most inclusive place, I mean, the president has chosen to kind of fear international foreign students. You know, we pay so much for the tuition fees. I mean, like, for 3 to 5 times more than the national students, and yet we kind of like are treated like shit, basically.
To me, I've been sort of thinking, I'm like, so does that mean, say, if we were not bringing some economic benefit to this country, we actually would not be allowed to stay here? And then has this sort of changed from us being treated as humans and as just students like any American student, to more of, oh, how much are they bringing in this country? And then basing off that to support us. So what I'm trying to say is that I feel like we shouldn't approach the narrative of fighting for international students from the perspective that, oh, how much are they bringing in this country? How much are they contributing in this country? I think it should be more of, they are students, just like any other American students.